Well, here we are again. Drew's in my spot, but everything back to normal here on Club Dub. We made it. Thanks for finding us on a Thursday evening. It's Packer week, so we got a lot to talk about. Bears and Packers this week. Bears 3-2, Packers 4-1 coming into the lakefront of Soldier Field. Winner of this game is on top of the NFC North. Drew and Eric, what's going on, guys? Eric, we'll start with you, man. New microphone, really outdoing us in the audio quality today.
Yeah, I had to step up my game a little bit. And, I was fortunate enough to get this for my birthday, upon request, of course. So, also this hat, I saw Justin Fields sporting it. I really liked it. So I had to get myself one. And so I've upgraded a little bit, huh?
Wow.
And Eric's got that swag going.
Yeah, you like that, right? You like that. Although I hate quoting Kirk Cousins.
Oh my God, I can't even get over how good that audio quality is. I sound like shit probably. Everybody else.
Don't worry, you'll get there shortly.
Make my way to the big leagues.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge game this week. We all know that it's a rivalry game. It's the two teams at the top of the division. Both teams have a lot to play for. The Bears are trying to finally prove themselves against a team that's really had their number for many years now, and they want to know, is Justin Fields going to be able to perform in the face of a team that has really, exposed Bears quarterbacks in the past? Mitch Trubisky, Jay Cutler. I mean, you can go down the line. They all tended to play their worst against the Packers. So if Justin Fields, he doesn't have to play great, but if he can play effectively and give his team a chance to win this game, that's going to make a lot of people really encouraged about where this team's headed.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknown, with a rookie quarterback and someone who's never faced the Packers before, a team that is, I don't want to say in turmoil, but has a lot of uncertainty to itself, with Davante Adams out next year, potentially Aaron Rodgers. Who knows what's going to happen with him? They got blown out in week 1. They've looked better since then, but had a rough game there against the Bengals, and they're surviving. But look at the Bears also reinventing themselves on the fly. 2 games in a row where they've won with a improved running game, more physicality, something I'm sure they've lacked and certainly have lacked against the Packers in the past. So how will that work here at Soldier Field? Bears on the upswing, certainly feeling more confident. You can hear it the way they're, in press conferences and practicing, and the way they're responding and things like that. So it's exciting. We'll see what happens. It'll be a big game. And the way you mentioned it, Kevin, whoever wins this, they have not only an advantage in the NFC North, they're at first place, but they also have that divisional and head-to-head win moving into the next game, man. So it's a big one.
It's huge for that reason alone, but I don't know. Fields' first match against the Packers, it just feels like something special is going to happen. I haven't had a good feeling about a Packer week in a long time. This one is leaving me with a pretty good feeling. I'm optimistic. We'll see what happens. We'll see. We got our good buddy Brian D joining the show today. He's the host of the Packers pregame show on their flagship network, 620 WTMJ up in Milwaukee. He'll be joining us in about 15 minutes to talk Packers. But before we get going into this one, I want to talk about the news of the week. John Gruden's gone 4 years into a 10-year deal for some pretty horrific comments he made across the board. Sexist, racist. He checked all the boxes. It just seems this is unfortunate for the league. He's an entertaining guy. He's a Super Bowl champion coach. But he's gone. And honestly, the biggest losers of this, aside from the victims and the people who were probably feeling pretty horrible about themselves after reading those emails, are the Raiders. This team was completely shaped into what John Gruden wanted over the last 4 years. That included trading their cornerstone player to the Bears in Khalil Mack. And since then, they've been pretty poor on the defensive side of the ball. They're starting to get it, but losing after such a nice start, losing your head coach, that's tough. So you got to feel for the Raiders, but this was the right move, no doubt about it.
Yeah, they had to make that move. And look, my thoughts are with Carl Nassib, who just came out over the summer, first actively gay player in the NFL. This had to have been a gut punch for him. I don't think he's met with the media since then. Mark Davis had some. I couldn't understand his strategy. You know what he said? Ask the NFL. They have the answers.
That's the thing. He didn't even meet with the media. He just shoved the mic and back in the reporter's face. Yeah, that's terrible. Take some accountability for your team. That's ridiculous.
For sure. I mean, he basically had Derek Carr holding the bag, and Derek Carr, I thought, did a really good job. Just probably expressing what everyone's feeling. And look, it's unfortunate in the sense that Yeah, for me personally, I'm going to say I enjoyed John Gruden as a Monday Night Football analyst, and this one's sad for me, for sure. But look, there's no place for that in the league, and for all the players, and unfortunately, Gruden is probably not the only one in the NFL. Hopefully, there's more efforts to try to root some of this out, moving forward. And look, a lot more of this has to come to light because it's unfortunate. You just never know where it's going to exist. Someone like Gruden really never would have expected, but here it is. And so there's probably a lot more like that in the league. It was the right move for the Raiders to make. And it's just sad all around for the NFL.
No question. I mean, what else is there to say? It's all right there. And, what was revealed, it just goes to show that, you don't need to be the best person in the world to have success in the NFL. And if you're really trying to build the proper culture, then, giving people like this a chance to flourish isn't going to help you out. And I think the NFL is learning that the hard way, unfortunately. So, Gruden had to go. Nobody was ever going to debate that. But it does shine a light on how far the league still has to go to get this problem sorted out, because it's not just him, especially at that level. I mean, the coaching, broadcasting level or whatever, it probably goes considerably higher because he was conversing with a guy who was president of an NFL team, Bruce Allen. So, it goes higher. And I think that the NFL, I know it's a conspiracy theory, but I think I buy some of that belief that the NFL is trying to steer him as sort of the goat, the scapegoat out of all of this, just so they can keep the light away from the owners, especially Daniel Snyder, because this whole thing came out of that Washington investigation in the first place. So it's a question of, will the NFL be able to sort of, brush this under the rug, which is probably what they're trying to do, or will more of it come out as time goes on? I guess we're going to find out.
Listen, you cannot be this high up in a league of this prominence and say things like this anymore. And you shouldn't have been able to say it in the first place. But unfortunately, with the toxic culture that does follow male dominated sports like this, sometimes things like this pop out. And it really is. It's sad for the league on a lot of notes, but more so the people who are affected by it. Football's always going to be there, but these comments have to stop. And unfortunately, we're just at the beginning of these coming out. And, Gruden's done. His next job,
Absolutely.
it won't be in the NFL. It won't be in a booth. It won't be as an analyst. It'll probably, I don't know. Maybe we'll see. Maybe we'll see him doing something in politics down the line, which unfortunately I could see it. I hope he just goes into the sunset and kind of just, is done. It's unfortunate. I'm sure he was apologetic in that statement he was, but the damage is done. Somebody put it really good was Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley is quickly becoming a fan favorite across the league. He had some really good thoughts on this.
Brandon, what are your thoughts on what happened with John Gruden?
Yeah, I think this is what I think about it. I think that respect and trust in this world are really, really difficult to achieve. And I think about all the people that were affected by those emails, whether you're a person of color, whether you're a person, a gender, your sexual orientation, the people that were affected by those emails, that's who I'm thinking about. Because it's a sacred mantle for someone to call you coach or someone to call you a leader. And trust is really, really hard to achieve in this world. It's really, really challenging to achieve. And especially with people with those groups that I just mentioned. All right, and people are really guarded, all right, and they're skeptical of people because of emails like that. And I just think that, kindness and lifting people up and respecting people you don't know, I just think that, that's such a big part of our thing here is listening to people and learning about people, because I think what you'll discover is that we have so much more in common than not. And I think that, for someone like me, it's just incumbent upon you to set the example every single day so that people that were, talked about in those emails, that they don't need to feel that way. They shouldn't feel that way. And it's, hopefully, all of us can learn from this, that it's about bringing people together for me, so that people can become, the people that they dream about. And I think that, for me, leading this football team and being someone, hopefully we can, be a light for those people in those emails, that not everybody's like that there's far more people that will love you than the opposite. And hopefully this will be a chance for everybody to come together instead of go apart.
I don't know about you guys, but give me more of Brandon Staley on a lot of different topics. I mean, so well said in so many different ways.
100%. He's got, everything that everyone's talked about him, right? Even when he was defensive coordinator for the Rams coming up, from Chicago, smart, well-spoken, deep in terms of philosophical thought, all those kinds of things. All of it's coming out. He's very, very, I love the way he conveys his thoughts. Obviously he said all the right things, and, this isn't the first example. There's been many examples of this. There was another viral clip about talking about the running game and how it helps quarterbacks. Again, very well thought out, very well laid out. He's a fun listen and very smart, and the Chargers are in good hands. And look, I have to agree with what he said regarding those comments. And, he's right. We do have a lot more in common than not. So.
No question about it. Well, John Gruden is gone 4 years, 3.5 years, more like it, into a 10-year contract with the Raiders. That's the news of the NFL week. On the lighter topics, though, we'll get back now to purpose of the pod. We got Brian D joining us. It's Packer week. Brian joins us from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Brian, my man, what is up, dude?
What's up, fellas? Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. How are you guys doing?
Welcome.
Good. How are you?
Great.
I can't wait to chat with you, man. It's been too long. How are things up how are things up north of the border? You guys nervous about this one on Sunday?
Not too many nerves flying around, and I think most of that is based upon the fact that A, Aaron Rodgers has been playing awesome, and B, the Justin Fields is still getting his sea legs under him, so to speak, and obviously a little bit dinged up after last week's game. So I think the nerves are at a minimum right now, but I do still think people up in this neck of the woods are taking that Bears defense seriously. So you just never know in these rivalry games. There's always so much emotion flying around that anything can really happen. It's looking at the Packers' last game against the Bengals, obviously we know that anything can really happen based upon how that game ended with 5 missed field goals between the two teams in the last 5 minutes. It was crazy.
For sure. And Brian, nice to have you on, and good to meet you. I have to start with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, all the offseason drama. Is he going to report? Is he not? Is he done? Is this his last year? All that kind of stuff's going on. Of course, that's still lingering, even though he's returned and playing well for Green Bay. Is there any sort of nostalgia creeping in with this potentially being his final trip to Soldier Field in Green Bay, in a Green Bay uniform, and later on in the year when the Bears go up and visit Lambeau Field? Any sort of nostalgia with kind of the Bears-Packers rivalry with Rodgers as the dominant quarterback?
Yeah, it's interesting, hearing Aaron talk on the Pat McAfee show on Sirius XM earlier this week, and then yesterday just in his normal Wednesday media session. He did talk a lot about how much he appreciates the Bears-Packers rivalry and how much he's grateful that he has been a part of this long stretch with Brett Favre as well, that they've been able to kind of swing the standing, so to speak, against the Bears, because when Brett Favre took over in the early 90s, the Bears were dominant in this rivalry. And over the last 31 years, I think that the stat was that the Packers are 44-19 since the start of the 1990s. So it's rough to hear when you lay it out like that. But I think, to answer your question, Rodgers is appreciative to have been a part of that turnaround, but is also speaking about it in a way that makes you feel like, hey, this could be the last couple games against the Bears, and he wants to cherish these moments. And we saw that throughout last year too, maybe without recognizing how close to the end he might have been at the time. I think we're all fully aware of that at this point in time.
No question. Most people would probably agree he's going to be gone in some form or fashion in 2022, unless something crazy happens in terms of his agreements with the front office. But
ignore me for a second, but
sure.
Just replugging in my laptop charger like an idiot.
Give me that close up one more time.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, let's do this. That's my recording. My jack wasn't working. I apologize.
Oh, you're all good.
You can keep it rolling. I can multitask.
My question was actually about the Packers as a whole. Last year I felt they were absolutely one of the best teams in the NFL. They were playing great. Offensively, they were an absolute juggernaut. The defense was playing well. This year, I feel they're kind of, I don't want to say off kilter, but not quite what they were last year. They seem a little banged up on both sides of the ball, and it feels like Rodgers is being Rodgers and being able to cover up a lot of their issues. Is that sort of the feeling, up in Green Bay as well?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate assessment of how things have gone so far. Injuries are a huge part of the Packers' story in 2021 so far on both sides of the ball. I mean, you look defensively, Zadarius Smith is out, and we don't know how much of that is actually injury related versus him just being frustrated with the organization and having some contract disputes. Jaire Alexander, their all-pro corner, is going to be out for quite some time, if not the rest of the season, depending on how he handles his AC joint shoulder injury. Kevin King, their other side corner, who is much maligned in these parts, he's banged up now. And then you look at the offense. Their skill position players are all good. Rodgers, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, Davante Adams is having another monster season. He's going to be a problem throughout if he's able to stay healthy. But that offensive line, David Bakhtiari, their all-pro left tackle, is still not back from the torn ACL that he suffered on New Year's Eve last year. They're expecting him back in the next couple weeks. Elton Jenkins, who's been a revelation for them, has still been banged up. Josh Myers, their rookie center who took over for Corey Linsley, missed last week's game. So it's really been pretty remarkable seeing them piece together that offensive line week after week with some success. Like, Rodgers has taken some sacks, but it hasn't been anything. You would think starting Yosh Nijman at left tackle, things would be a heck of a lot worse than they have been, and they've been pretty remarkable in terms of piecing it together.
Well, yeah, I was going to mention, because it sounds like the offensive line has gotten some pretty surprise reinforcements, and now with Jenkins and Myers both practicing this week, that's really going to change a lot of what the Bears do, especially when Akeem Hicks is out with a hamstring injury. So a lot like the Raiders game, the Bears won it in the trenches. They won it with a pass rush. That's how they're going to win a lot of their games this year. I mean, that's the strength of their team. But if Jenkins and Myers plays, how much of a difference does that make in the sack total? And do you see them winning or losing the game up front like that, or is it more going to be just 12 taking over?
I think that's certainly the Bears' path to victory, right? It has been all season long. It's been their front seven, their pass rush. Robert Quinn's having a ridiculous year. We all just eats up so much space, right? So I think that's certainly the Bears' path to victory, is hoping that this ragtag offensive line that Green Bay has been putting out there all season can have a bad game. And they haven't really had a bad game thus far. So you could bet potentially on that coming around at some point, especially because Elton Jenkins and Josh Myers, like you mentioned, Kev, haven't played in a couple of weeks' time. So it's been impressive to see them piece it together, but I certainly think winning the game in the trenches is the path to victory for the Bears, because if you get into a shootout with Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, I just don't know if that's a game with Justin Fields this week. And I think Justin Fields is going to be really good. I like him a lot. I just don't know at this juncture of his career, coming off the injury he's coming off of, if that's a recipe for success this game.
I think, yeah, and going off of that, I think this is going to be a game where we see Fields take some shots.
Yeah.
The Bears are at home, obviously, and this is a time where you look at Jaire not playing, and really the only guy you're going to have to worry about in that secondary is Darnell Savage. Eric Stokes played pretty well last week, but I think this is going to be a game where you see Fields start to blow the top off the defense, or at least attempt to. So we could see some of that, but really the biggest point of emphasis that a lot of people are making in this game with the pass rushes, they lead the league in sacks. They have a low blitz percentage. Rodgers struggles with cover too. I guess for you, has he looked is there any sort of weak point in his game this year that you think they'll try and attack?
It's funny you bring that up, and the first thing that jumps to mind, you guys can see my Jim Kelly and Machine Gun Kelly poster behind me. I grew up as a diehard Buffalo Bills fan. Kevin knows this, in Western New York, and I'm covering the Packers now. But when you start talking about that, I think about what the Bills did on Sunday Night Football to slow down Patrick Mahomes. It's getting pressure with 4 and dropping your other guys into coverage. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a successful strategy against all elite in the National Football League, right? We saw the Buccaneers employ that in the Super Bowl last year. If the Bears are able to create pressure with 4 and drop their other guys into coverage and contain Davante Adams to a certain extent, they get a chance to win the football game. That's, I think the blueprint for the Bears, guys, is kind of what Cincinnati did last week, except make your freaking field goal. You know what I mean? Like the Bengals should have won that game.
One away. Yeah, they gave
really
that one
did.
away.
And it's a lot of what you guys were talking about. Like, Joe Burrow took some shots. He hit that long one to Jamar Chase right at the end of the first half on a busted coverage on kind of a broken play where Jamar just got open. So those are the plays that can change a game. And then they created an early turnover. And I think that's key with the Packers too, is you don't have to create 4. Obviously, that would be helpful, but stealing a possession against Aaron Rodgers in this offense, even if you go, 3 and out, it's a stolen possession that they could put points up on. So, those are the keys. It's creating pressure with 4, dropping guys into coverage, and creating a turnover. And if you do that, you're going to have an opportunity.
I want to look to the future a little bit, and I know I mentioned nostalgia about Rodgers and the Bears maybe in his last year. What's the feeling about Matt LaFleur as a coach? Because since he joined the league, obviously the Packers have had great success. Aaron Rodgers looked a little bit reborn. I thought the scramble to get him back to Green Bay, especially after drafting Jordan Love right in the first round, you would expect that if he was any good, they'd feel comfortable and be like, you know what, Aaron, go ahead, do what you want to do. We have Jordan Love. So clearly he must suck or something. But how do Packers fans feel about the future with Matt LaFleur as their coach? Do they feel that he's buoyed by Rodgers, or do they think he has enough on his own to sustain success after Rodgers moves on?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I know that's a cop-out answer to your question. So Matt LaFleur, after last week, I believe is 31-7 through 2.25 seasons in the NFL. Yeah. That's really good, especially as a first-time head coach. That being said, not every first-time head coach gets to walk into a situation with Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, and Aaron Jones, right? That's helpful for a young offensive-minded head coach. No crap, Ryan. He certainly was thrown into a very good situation that's helped. He's also, like you said, rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers and done some things in terms of using play action, getting him out of the pocket a little bit that have liberated him. And things just got stale with Mike McCarthy at the end of the line. So I certainly think he's capable of sustaining this success. But it all comes down to quarterback play, right, in the NFL. And the interesting thing, and I heard Jordan Palmer talking about this, kind of the quarterback guru that's worked with a lot of these young guys, most notably Josh Allen, right? He's worked with Jordan Love a little bit. He spent some time around Jordan Love, and he likes Jordan Love. Jordan Love can spin it. He thinks Jordan Love's going to be a really good player, but the bar in Green Bay, and I think this is detrimental when it comes to the next 10 years, the bar in Green Bay is Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and it's not fair to whoever's next, right? It's just not, because your expectation is going to be Super Bowl and Hall of Fame. People have forgotten over the last 3 decades how rare that is and how lucky they are to have caught lightning in a bottle twice in a row. So I just hope that the Packers organization, looping around to your initial question, I hope they're enough with both Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur that you can suffer through. And I think about the Bears, like Mitch Trubisky won a division and got to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years, like
I was just about to say the bar here is pretty low, but
right. And it wasn't in Chicago. So if it wasn't in Chicago, it's sure as hell not going to be good enough in Green Bay. So I hope the Packers organization is patient enough to deal with a 10-6, a 9-7, or I'm using 16 game because I haven't game thing yet. But you get the idea. Hanging around 500 seasons with Jordan Love, where they say, okay, we can work with this guy. Let's get him to a second contract and see kind of how that shakes out. And if we have to make a change at that point, we will.
Well, I think in order to even get to a 9-7 season, a 10-6 season with a guy like Love, and you're going to have young studs on your defense and kind of building it up. And I'm slowly starting to see a few guys emerge. Kenny Clark was awesome last year. He's great this year. He's still 26. He's young. If Eric Stokes pans out, Jaire's young. So you have those club-friendly deals, so maybe you can make the investment on offense. But you got Aaron Jones locked up. He's good to go, depending on, if you want to hang on to him through the Love era. I'm assuming they would to make it easier on a young quarterback. But I don't think Davante plays with Jordan Love, so I think that changes pretty much everything you want to do on offense. I mean, there's no stopping this guy. I mean, he is – I know you watch a lot of Stephon Diggs being a Bills fan. And I think Diggs is, for my money, a top 3 or 4 receiver in the league. but to me, Davante's number one, and it's not even close.
Yep, I agree. And I'll throw this out to you guys as some food for thought as to where things stand with Aaron Rodgers. The only wide receiver the Green Bay Packers have under contract in 2022 is Amari Rodgers, their draft pick from this year. Nobody else is currently under contract. Davante is not. He's obviously looking to become the highest paid player in the NFL. Allen Lazard, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Randall Cobb, they're all not under contract next year. Amari Rodgers is the only one. So I think for all those wide receivers, they're thinking the same thing that we're thinking. Like, do I want to be in Green Bay if Aaron's not here? Do I want to suffer through the Jordan Love stuff? And like, from Davante's perspective, it's really fascinating because he's been clamoring for a while, like I said, to be the highest paid wide receiver in football, and I think he deserves that, right? We put stats in the bottom, 11 catches for 206 last week. He's leading the league in yardage so far through 5 weeks. It's crazy. He's a freak.
61 targets, too. That's your whole offense. That's crazy.
And a huge key to this weekend's game is the Bears just containing him and making them go elsewhere because he could eat you alive. And Aaron's always looking at him. So, but if I'm Davante Adams, is money worth that much? And it's easy for me to say, right? Because I'm the highest paid, wide receiver in the NFL. But like, do I want to commit my next 5 years, which are probably as a wide receiver, at his age, this is going to be his opportunity to get paid. Do I want to commit that to Jordan Love? Do I really want to do that? I would say no. And conversely, I think the Packers want to keep their options open financially by if they wanted to pay him by now, they could have paid him by now, right? So I'd be curious what those negotiations have been like and who's the snag, because I think there's probably culpability on both ends of that.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, I recall looking, and the Packers have a really serious salary cap situation going into next year, like $30 million over the salary cap, depending on where it ends up. So they have a lot of really tough financial decisions ahead of them. Adams, Rodgers are obviously the two big ones, but also a few guys on defense, Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, all those guys. So they could look like a really different team next year.
They will be. They undoubtedly, because of their salary cap situation, if Rodgers sticks around or not. And, we all, dubbed this season The Last Dance, almost like the Jordan era, because Davante and Aaron Rodgers posted the photo of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen on Instagram.
Yeah, we took that real well over here.
Right? It's crazy. So they brought that on themselves, but Aaron has also addressed this a couple of times, what we're talking about. Like, he understands that regardless if he is back or not, the team is undoubtedly going to look different next year because of the salary cap situation. I would be astonished if Zadarius Smith is back in green and gold next year. They've got decisions to make all along that offensive line. David Bakhtiari is locked up, but everybody else is kind of in a weird situation. I would think they would want to extend Elton Jenkins, but you just never know. Davante is a huge decision. So this is going to be a drastically different looking football team going forward. And I think that's going to play into Aaron's decision at the end of this year too.
Where's Rodgers going? I want Davante in Chicago. I don't know about you guys, but I'd love to see him come play with Fields. I don't think it happens. They don't have the money for it right now. I mean, where does Rodgers go? I'll guess. I'll say Denver right away. I'll say Denver. Do we all agree on that?
I don't know if it's specifically going to be Denver, but I sure as hell know it's not going to be anywhere in the NFC. Like, there's a less than 0% chance the Packers trade him anywhere where they have to play him twice a year, let alone once a year. They don't want to deal with him until the Super Bowl.
What do you think about Miami? You think they might, take a stab at him?
Man, Miami is in such a hellhole with their quarterback position in terms of Tua. Like, they made a huge mistake. I mean, how much do you have to hate a top 5 pick to want to trade 3 first-round picks for a guy that may never play in the NFL again? Like, that's crazy. So, I think Miami's an option. I was intrigued by some of the things Rodgers said about Pittsburgh, and obviously their quarterback position is going to be vacant pretty soon based on the way that Ben's playing. So there are options in the AFC, and it's interesting with Rodgers' contract too. Like, if last year the Packers can trade him to wherever they feel like they get the best, return from a trade perspective this offseason, and that would be his last year, of his current deal. So theoretically, he could get traded to an AFC team, play there for a year, and then decide, okay, I'm a free agent now. I'm going to go stick it to him as a member of the Vikings like Brett Favre did.
Right.
I don't think Aaron would, based upon some of his comments yesterday, talking about how he would never play for the Bears. It's just not going to happen. I think he's learned from how Brett Favre did things and how he doesn't want to do things. Now, I really, truly believe this based on, some of the conversations I've had with Jason Wilde, our Packers reporter here at
Wilde's the
IBS
best, man. He's the best.
I really think Kyle Shanahan got Aaron Rodgers' hopes up this past offseason. And obviously that situation is in flux too, right? Because you don't know what Trey Lance is going to be. Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly not the long-term answer.
And Rodgers was a 49ers fan when he was young, right?
Yeah, he's from Northern California. I really think Aaron got his hopes up that he was going to be able to strong arm his way into a trade to San Francisco. And obviously it didn't happen. So I could see a situation, especially 2 years down the line when he's got the opportunity to choose, where he ends up somewhere in the NFC so he can stick it to the Packers and also play somewhere that he really enjoys.
How funny is it that sorry, I think I interrupted somebody.
You're good.
I was going to say, how funny is it the 49ers 2 years ago, they mess up on Tom Brady, and then this year they mess up on Aaron Rodgers?
It's what the crazy thing is too, like we talk about the Niners as a team that's searching for quarterback, and they are, but like they were 10 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They were a third down stop on that crazy bomb from Mahomes to Tyreek Hill from winning the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Like it's not, they're not far off. And I think Rodgers understands that. He's a smart guy and sees the pieces they have in place. Like who wouldn't want to go play with another young offensive-minded head coach and Kyle Shanahan, who's super creative, what's been a really good running game and all those fun defensive pieces. I mean, and it's further than just, Bosa. It's Fred Warner, who Rodgers has talked about really loving in the past, and they've got pieces in place there, and he loves that area. So I think next year it'll be an AFC team if they don't figure things out in Green Bay, and I don't think anything's been resolved. And
no.
I think some of that's on Rodgers. A lot of it's on the Packers. I think they want to see what they have in Jordan Love, right? So, it's still very much up in the air. But if I were betting, I think he's still gone after this season. He'll end up somewhere in the AFC for a year, and then after that, he'll kind of decide where he wants to wrap things up.
Yeah, I want to change my answer. I think Pittsburgh would be a great landing spot for him, but we'll see. You're right. Chris, thanks for the comment. Houston, no, probably not. Can you imagine the Packers are like, yeah, see ya. Have fun in Houston next year.
It's Iberia. It's reminiscent, guys, of what the Packers did with the Jets. You know what I mean? It's like, well, go to New York. Enjoy that.
Yeah, have a good time. Go play in the worst run NFL franchise in the league. All right, so I'm optimistic about this one. I haven't been optimistic about a Bears game in a long time against the Packers. I don't know if a betting man, which I am, I don't think I'm putting my money on the Bears, but I want to. I'm still going to say Packers are winning this one by a score.
Ooh, Kevin, you set that up for I'm picking the Bears. Let's go.
I know.
I let
it out there. I can't. See, I can't do it. I think just Rodgers plays his best games of the year at Soldier Field and against the Bears. He always saves his best games for this team. So I'll go Packers 27, Bears 20. I think the Bears will need to score 30 to win this one, which I also don't think they're capable of doing at this moment in time. They're still growing and need to have some pieces. Brian, who do you think wins this one?
Yeah, I think the Packers are going to win. I think the Bears' route to victory is keeping the game in the low 20s, like we saw with the Bengals last week. It was 22-22 going into overtime, right? So I think the Bears absolutely have a defense that's capable of that. But like we talked about, they got to get pressure with only 4 and drop a lot of guys into coverage and make things difficult for Aaron, right? And if they can do that, and Justin Fields can string a couple of scoring drives together in key moments like Joe Burrow did, they've got an opportunity. They certainly do. But I hate to bring up the comeback game from a couple of years ago. I think the Bears were up 20-3, right? And Rodgers was hurt and it looked like it was over. And then Rodgers did Rodgers stuff. And he's just like, that's what he does, man. So even that game that was played in the low 20s, like we're talking about, he found a way to win. So just based upon a lot of that stuff, I got to pick the Packers. But I think if the Bears keep this game flirting around 20, 21 points, they're going to have an opportunity to steal it at the end.
True.
That's fair enough. I got the Packers as well. I'm going to go 31-23. I think the quick game is going to kill him in this one.
Eric?
I think it's going to be tighter, a little bit tighter than that. I think it'll be 24-20 Packers. I think the defense is going to play well. They're going to play physical, but I think Rodgers, being who he is going to be able to take advantage of some busted coverages, which has been a problem with the Bears secondary so far this year. And that's probably going to make up most of the difference. I mean, I came across a stat recently that in the last 9 meetings between the Bears and Packers, the Bears have scored 20 or more points just 3 times. So when you hear stuff like that, it's really hard to be optimistic about whether they can score enough points to beat Aaron Rodgers. So until I see something differently, I have to go with it, seeing it that way.
Brian, before we let you go, you brought up, you're a Bills fan. So from a Bears perspective, I got kind of a 2-pronged question for you.
Yep.
First of all, obviously a lot of speculation about Matt Nagy and his, future with the Bears and everything. Brian Daboll is obviously a hot candidate for that. So any thoughts that you have, first of all, on Daboll coming to Chicago, leaving Josh Allen and the Bills, and alongside that, how's our friend Mitch Trubisky doing?
So Mitch is doing great. He scored a touchdown a couple of weeks ago in the blowout against Houston because he's gotten into 2 games so far this year. He's getting some garbage time with how bad the Bills are beating guys up. So I think it's a good refresher for Mitch, and I'm rooting for him. I know he's not going to be in Buffalo long term. I think after this season, somebody will take a flyer on him and make him their starter, and I think he deserves it. We kind of hit on that earlier. Like he got a raw deal in Chicago with, a lovely segue into the second part of your question. And Matt Nagy, I don't think he's going to make it at the end of the year. I'd be surprised. So I think I would be sad to lose Brian Daboll. He is awesome. He's super creative. He thinks outside the box, and the strengths of his quarterback. And I think when it comes to Justin Fields, that's the biggest reason. Like looking at the Bills, that is the biggest reason the Bears need to part ways with Matt Nagy. Because he already showed with Mitch, we're not committing to the quarterback's strengths. Mm-hmm. So why should I think he's going to do that with Justin Fields if he didn't do it for Trubisky, right? And when I look at the Josh Allen success story, which is something everybody's trying to recreate now.
It's remarkable.
The thing that sticks out to me, because everybody hated Josh Allen coming out, right? It was like, this isn't going to work. He's a project quarterback. He's super inaccurate. He completed 50% of his passes in college at Wyoming. How in the hell is this guy going to succeed in the NFL? And what the Bills did was organizationally on every single level set him up to succeed. It was all about 17, right? It was, let's fix the defense first and sign a bunch of free agents before they even drafted him. Like before they picked their quarterback, they got the team to a situation where they were competitive defensively. We're going to bring in Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer as free agents. We're going to draft Tre'Davious White, an all-pro corner with our first-round pick. So much so we believe in him, we're going to trade out of a spot where the Chiefs take Patrick Mahomes and trade back and get another first-round pick for the next year that we end up taking Josh Allen with, right? Then they get that second-round pick. They use it on a superstar middle linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds, who's finally starting to come into his own. He's still like 12 years old. So, and then they start building pieces, right? Then we make the trade for Stephon Diggs. Then we start drafting wide receivers and running backs and offensive line to complement this, right? So top to bottom, it was an organizational success story. And I think Daboll, to get back to your initial question, obviously has had a front row seat to all of that, right? So he's going to come in if he's the guy for the Bears, and I hope he is. And like I said, ideal situation is they win the Super Bowl this year, and then he gets to pick wherever he wants to go. I saw you guys talking about Brandon Staley just before I came on, and his comments about the Gruden situation were tremendous. I was stunned that Daboll didn't get that job this offseason, and then the more I hear Staley talk, the more I understand why they went that direction. But yeah, I think Daboll would be an awesome fit because he's had a front row seat to that organizational success story that the Bears need to hit on with Justin Fields.
Awesome.
I love that too. I don't know. I think the Bears, if the way they're playing right now, I mean, it's 5 weeks in, but if they find themselves at 9-8, or if they find themselves at 10-7, and they're in the playoffs again, I think Nagy's back. But
especially if Trubisky. Especially if Fields looks like he's growing, you never know.
But I tend to agree. No, that's the thing. I don't want that.
Ask them. I wanted Nagy gone before the start of this year.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
It's.
I'm open to it, but go ahead. Good.
Yeah, it's just it seems to me from the outside like fooling around with an answer you already know. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, like this didn't work the first time, and I don't know how you guys feel about Pace either. Like, does he survive if Nagy doesn't? It's just
Probably
made a lot
not.
of good moves, made a lot of stupid moves. It's kind of hard to judge. It's just like this offense. We're talking about Bill Lazor as a play caller right now. We're all are throwing our hands in the air like it's the greatest thing we've ever seen. Bill Lazor's not that great of a play call. Like, this offense could be so much better than it is, but because we've been stuck in the dark ages for the last couple of years and wasting a good defense, anything that is a 15, 20-yard play down the field is the second coming of Christ in this city. And it's
the way Nagy handled that press conference after giving the play calling ability to Lazor after that game a couple of weeks ago was reason for him to be fired. Like, it was crazy.
He's a child.
It was a disaster. It was like, okay, so who called plays? And Nagy was like, well, I'm the head coach, but Bill was calling the plays, but I made the decision to let him call the plays. I'm like, I know what you do. Like, you're the head coach. I get it. You don't have to explain to me that you're the head coach of the Bears. Like, you're trying to prove to me that, like, what are you trying to prove to me? Like, I don't understand. So I think he sees the writing on the wall, and I think they'd be out of their minds to keep him around and not go a different direction, because if it doesn't work out, and you've seen it not work out, you're wasting Justin Fields' rookie contract. And when the next coach comes in, guess what the next coach is going to want to do? Draft somebody that's not named Justin Fields, right? Because that's the way that coaches and new regimes operate. These were the old guys. We got to prove ourselves. It happened in Green Bay, right? When Ted Thompson, and God rest his soul, when Goody took over, Goody wanted to do things his own way. He wasn't going to do things the Ted Thompson way anymore. And he said, okay, we're going to do the Jordan Love thing. We're going to do things differently in free agency, kick the tires on guys, and Ted never did that. So, that's what I fear for, and hanging on to Nagy too long is wasting Justin Fields' early portion of his career. And who knows, maybe it doesn't work out for him in Chicago if they stick with the head coach too long.
Mm-hmm.
Fields is such a likable guy. Just listen to him talk about this rivalry and compare it to Michigan, Ohio State.
Unfortunately, the Bears are kind of the Michigan in this rivalry against the Packers. What does that mean? I guess what do you feel like is the key to be a part of this, turning that around?
Executing and making plays. Of course, we know they're talented on offense and defense, so it's just going to come down to executing and making plays.
No, I apologize for stepping on Justin there.
No, you're good. The straight face kills me every time. They're trying to make a Michigan Ohio State rivalry joke, and Justin's not having any of that. I'm a big fan. I hope. I think you're right, Brian. He does have the tools, and I hope he succeeds here, because he's. Let's face it. Mitch did get a raw deal here, but Mitch is not a good NFL quarterback, and I don't think he ever will be. And that's not me snowpiling on Mitch. I think that it was a combination of both things, but Justin Fields has a ceiling that far exceeds what Mitch Trubisky ever could have been.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm hoping it works out here. And I don't think it works out under Matt Nagy. I watched the first 4 weeks of the season. I watched that Cleveland game, and it was a complete disaster. And we saw 4 or 5 of those games the year before that. So I'm in agreement. Bring on Brian Dable. I'm all about it. That'd be great. Or better yet, trade us Josh Allen. I mean, I'm cool with that too.
I don't know if that's going to happen. And the last thing I'll say, guys, is you got to love that mentality from Justin Fields. And I remember seeing the video of him. I think it was from early training camp or even the offseason activity, where somebody on the Bears staff was asking him who his center was in college, right? And he says it was Josh Myers, and the coach goes, "Where did he get drafted to?" And Justin goes, "The wrong place," right? And of course, he's playing center for Aaron Rodgers now. So you got to love, after how things have gone for the last 20 or 30 years in this rivalry, that the quarterback's embracing it. He understands how important this is to the people of Chicago. And personally, I love it when it's close. Rivalries suck when they're lopsided, like Ohio State, Michigan has been. They're no fun. So I would love to see the Bears get competitive again and turn these pair of games a year into really fun things that we always look forward to.
For sure.
Right on. There you go.
My man, Brian, thanks for hopping on, man. Where can we find you? Where can we hear you?
Yeah, so follow me on Twitter at BrianJD. Hear me on 620 WTMJ. We'll have Packers pregame starting at 9 if you're in the northern suburbs of Chicago and want to hear some Packers perspective, 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. And that's the whole deal. Good catching up with you guys, Kevin. I appreciate you all having me, and enjoy the game this weekend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Yeah.
jumping on, man.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
man.
Brian, thanks for popping on. Tell everybody too back at the station. I say what's up. I missed that
Will
place.
do,
Hope
buddy.
you guys are all killing it. So that's Brian D, the pregame show host for the Packers Radio Network on 620 WTMJ. He also hosts time to time on ESPN Milwaukee. He's a big Marquette basketball fan too, so you'll hear our podcast. Hopefully, we'll launch that up again this season. Championship Blue. So we've got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. But again, Brian D, thanks for hopping on. Guys, we're coming up to an end here, but I do want to play one thing we did go over. Rodgers did show some love and gave a shout out to WGN. How about it? Hear me on WGN. He gave a shout out to the city of Chicago. And for us, I always take this away from rivalries, and I think we'll see it again on Sunday. As much as we hate him, and he's been a rival and a pain in our ass, and he's won 20 games out of 25, and just and hit us where it hurts the most, especially in playoff games and things like that. This guy is the most talented quarterback I've ever seen touch a football, and he probably will go down as a top 2 or 3 talented quarterback of all time. And getting to see him on our doorstep for the last 12 years has been pretty special, and he thinks the same way.
I mean, I don't think they're extremely happy with me. They're not very cordial most of the time, but I respect that. I mean, I respect it's a great sports town. They got two baseball teams, a basketball team that I grew up cheering for. I don't know how it was for you guys, but when I was growing up, one of the few channels we had on TV was WGN. And so you got to watch like Cubs baseball, and some Bulls basketball games for whatever reason. So you naturally became a fan, I think, because I was a big sports fan, and that was the only thing that was on TV. For years, when we played down there, I would, the night before, go on a long walk, and often walk to dinner. Mastro's was where I went to dinner for years and years and years in a row. And on one of those walks, a random mom and son, even though I'm all bundled up, wearing a sweatshirt because freezing and a winter hat and stuff, they recognized me, and we walked for 4 or 5 blocks together. So that was a nice chance meeting. But I've always enjoyed the city, enjoyed the fans, even though they haven't really enjoyed me. That's fine. I get it. Maybe there'll be a little more love when my time comes to an end playing here, but. I do have a lot of respect for the city and the sports fans they got there.
Could you see yourself ever playing there when your time comes playing here?
No.
Hard no.
It's just not going to happen,
Oh.
man.
Noted Bulls fan and maybe Cubs fan? Aaron Rodgers?
It sounded like he watched the Cubs. He's a Cubs fan too. Yeah, so I can't believe that. That makes me like him like head and shoulders all over the place. Yeah, I know, Chris. Trust me, he's been a heartbreaker in all of our sides for a long time, but he's a good dude, man. He is. He's a good dude. Does he have an ego now? Yeah. Can he? Yeah. He's a different dude. I respect his outlook on life and his outlook on a lot of things that happened this offseason, a lot of things that we talked about. You can go back and watch afterwards. But, this could be it at the lakefront for number 12 in a Packer uniform. And I think we're all happy to see it. That'll be one chapter I think we'll all be happy to close. But it'll be bittersweet.
Look, I mean, I can tell you Aaron Rodgers' first start for the Bears was right before the year. I was a junior, I think, in high school. And, look, basically got into adulthood watching Rodgers beat the Bears. And, I mean, has that been painful? Sure, especially growing up. But the guy is one of the smartest people I have heard talk. Very deep thoughts whenever he shares. He doesn't talk just nonsense just for the sake of talking. Everything that he says has purpose behind it. He's a fun person to listen to. I know for sure my appreciation of him. I've become a fan of his over the last, half a decade or so. I'll definitely miss watching him play whenever he's gone. And yeah, even though he's been a thorn in the Bears' sides, I mean, for me, for sure, it'll be bittersweet.
I'm always reminded of a great story I heard from Magic Johnson one time, and he was going through Boston because, this was at the height of the Boston Celtics versus Lakers rivalry in the 80s. And, he ran into a Celtics fan, and the Celtics fan basically said to his face, "I don't like you. I'm a big Larry Bird fan." And then he prefaced it with saying, "But I respect you." And I think that's sort of where Bears fans are with Aaron Rodgers. They don't like him. They hate him to death. But at the same time, they obviously respect him, as well you should, considering how great he's been. So I don't like Aaron Rodgers for the obvious reasons. But, when you watch him play football, you can't help but respect the guy because he's one of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to look at a quarterback that I've seen in my lifetime and say that someone is more talented than him. Obviously, Brady's got the rings and Brady's got the clutch gene, but I mean, right behind him is number 12. And for my money, if I'm taking a quarterback in a skill level position, I'm taking Rodgers, man. I am. I know that Brady's great, but Rodgers on the skill level and the things that he does, for my money, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen in my life. And I'll be glad if this is his last year in Green Bay, and I hope he goes off elsewhere and the Bears see him in the Super Bowl. I take that back. I don't want to see him in the Super Bowl. Never mind. He's already broken my heart a few times. But, yeah, it'll be a good game. I think, like we talked about with Brian, Davante and Rodgers both gone after this year. This is the last run of this Packers team. We'll get a chance to see him on Sunday. Don't compare yourselves to The Last Dance, though. That sucked. Don't do that. Don't make me hate you even more. That sucked. I didn't like that at all. And I didn't even really grow up in the Jordan era. I grew up in '97. That's when I was born, and I've seen all the documentaries now. But come on, you can't compare yourself to that. I don't know. We got a Packers fan in the chat, Dan Benno. All right, man. Hey, I appreciate you tuning in, but don't ever say that again. All right. Well, that's it for us, really. I think we pretty much covered it. Rodgers versus the Bears, 55-10. I mean, he's been just absolutely ridiculous. Brian D hopped on the show if you want to go back and rewatch it. John Gruden's out. The Bears and Khalil Mack retired him. Jokes aside, he made some terrible comments. And no longer the coach of the Raiders. We talked about that at the beginning of the show. Before we get out of here, we got a final take to get to. Drew, take it away, my man.
Let's do it. All right, guys. No, I don't get – oh, there we go. Full screen on me. Awesome. Heck yeah. All right. I know we talked a little bit about, should Matt Nagy be fired, still, even though they've shown turnaround time and all that kind of stuff and, different perspectives, and totally understand. My take is this. The Bears have clearly demonstrated an identity change, an attitude change, and a whole bunch of other things that have changed in the last two games since Matt Nagy decided to become just the head coach. Physical. This offensive line is dominating. The defensive front is dominating. Yes, it's been the Lions. It's been the Raiders. But the attitude is different. The execution is different. They're playing really hard and enjoying themselves. I mean, look at Jimmy Graham after making a block. Jimmy Graham, he's pumping his fists and he's getting all excited. That didn't happen before. Look at Matt Nagy on the sidelines. I mean, he doesn't even know a play is being called certain times because he's celebrating with the defense, celebrating special teams. And the Bears are winning. They've won both games pretty comfortably. So look, all I'm saying is this. If Matt Nagy accepts just being the head coach, if this change is permanent and the Bears show that they are a team and a force to be reckoned with the rest of this year, Justin Fields grows, the offense grows. Yes, can they do better than Bill Lazor? Sure. Can they do better than Matt Nagy? Probably. But look, the purpose of this team is to win games. The schedule is difficult. Their prospects of making the playoffs is difficult, and their job to develop Justin Fields is difficult. If they're making progress on all fronts and all of these changes are positive, let it play out. Who knows? Maybe fans will change their minds. I might. I mean, right now, where I'm at, I was ready to fire him after Cleveland. Last two games, I've seen legitimate changes. I want to see that, continue on, and I want fans to give that a chance. So give it a chance.
No, you're right, though. You're right. We have seen philosophical changes. This is a running football team. They have three really good running backs, two of which are not going to play. We didn't get to that in the show, but you play fantasy football, go pick up Khalil Herbert if he hasn't been picked up already. He's going to be the Bears' number one back. Damian Williams hits the COVID list. Montgomery's going to miss the next at least probably 3 or 4 games. Still out with that injury. So,
Have you seen that injury list, by the way?
Oh yeah, actually, I got a photo of it. I got so distracted talking Aaron Rodgers and hyping up Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what got into me, but I do have the injury report right here. It's pretty wild.
I mean, Akeem Hicks, JP Holtz, Caleb Johnson, Khalil Mack, Allen Robinson not practicing for 2 days in a row. Jakeem Grant limited. I mean, look, hopefully at least Robinson or Mack are playing. I think Mack will be fine, but Robinson's playing. Hopefully Akeem Hicks is back. Montgomery's already on IR. Damian Williams is out. If the Bears can somehow pull this game off, I mean, that is like, come on, we're talking about handing out extensions at this point. I'm kidding.
Dude,
I'm kidding.
Well,
but
what's up with Jimmy Graham? And like, is that part of his new contract? Like his flex money? Like, I don't have to practice. That dude's collecting bank check and he's just sitting on the bench not practicing all week. He hasn't practiced since the beginning of the year. He's been a non-resting vet on every single injury report. What is that all about?
He practiced in full today. He practiced in full today.
Oh, okay. I thought it said did not practice. Oh, it's Wednesday.
Wednesdays. Wednesdays is his.
I'm reading the wrong one. Okay, sorry, Jimmy Graham. Because I swear to God, every time I look at this list, non-injury resting vet, and I'm like, what does that even mean?
I mean, if anyone, I expect Robert Quinn because of his drop foot last year. I expect some of those guys.
Good, so he can do that. Jimmy Graham doesn't do anything. I don't know.
Looking at the injury report, you can pretty much bet that Khalil Mack's probably going to play. They're just giving his body as much possible time to heal as they can without putting too much pressure on it. I think the fact that Allen Robinson actually met with the media this week is a surefire sign that he's probably going to play. He's another one of those tough guys that they know what he's about, so they don't really need to, see too much of him in practice. I think the one that you really need to watch is Hicks. If, he tried to come back to practice last Friday, but ended up being doubtful and eventually downgraded to out. Will it be different this time around? I guess we're going to have to find out. But right now, I'm pretty sure Mac's going to play, and the same can be said for Allen Robinson unless something changes.
Makes sense.
Shoot, give JP Holtz some starts too. Why not? Jesper Horsted and JP Holtz. Why not? Throw him in. Horsted getting that touchdown. We'll see. Maybe be more productive.
I would love to see him going on a seam route, splitting, Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos right down the middle, and all of a sudden, there's a nice deep ball to Horsted, goes for a touchdown. That'd be nice.
My man, Jason, thank you. Don't be sorry. You're right. This is my part of my podcast. This is our podcast, but I don't have to be sorry on my own show. You're right, Jason. I appreciate that. I'm not sorry, Jimmy Graham. Get me a touchdown this week, and maybe I'll forgive you. But
get you a touchdown. Do you have him on fantasy?
Give me a touchdown. What? No, heck no. I got Travis Kelce.
There you go.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good in the tight end department. My fantasy team, though, 0-5 in one of my leagues. I got beat by a guy who put up 185 points. I put up 135, and then I'm 3-2 in my other league. So not been a great fantasy start for me. But Bears Packers this Sunday. Thanks again to Brian D, our guest from WTMJ 620, my old stomping grounds. He's the pregame show host up there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They love their Packers up there. They're trying to enjoy this final run. It's a battle for the top of the NFC North on Sunday, so it's going to be a good one. Guys, as always, thanks for tuning in. And to Drew and Eric, thank you guys again. You can find us all week. You can see our Twitter handles right there. So go ahead, give us a follow. And then also follow our Twitter handle for our show, clubdub_podcast. We'll have highlights throughout the week. Go back and watch the show. And enjoy the game, Bears fans. I'm feeling optimistic. I know I picked the Packers, but I'm feeling optimistic. This one feels different. I don't know why.
Famous last words.
Maybe we'll see a Bears win on Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.